Hey, thanks for dropping by to the Planners on Purpose podcast, created by Naomi Tucker, CMP. Now, this space is for the event planners to encourage and empower you so that you can fully live your life on purpose. So before we dig in, please take a moment to subscribe so you get future shows. Now, here she comes, your host, Naomi.
Well, hello, everyone. It's Naomi Tucker, your host here at the Planners on Purpose podcast. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the podcast and to yet another episode. Today, I wanted to talk to you about stress, and not just stress, but why is event planning so stressful? We're going to take a little look at some of the elements that make event professionals all over the world really just pull their hair out or grab a glass of wine and call it a day because of the stress that they are enduring from their work. So we are going to talk about what some of those pain points are within event planning and just have a little bit of fun with it. And to wrap up this episode, I'll definitely give you some tips on how to make things less stressful for you as you continue to do the amazing planning of events that you do. So let's jump in. When you look at event planning, event coordination, the event profession, this profession is pretty much one of the most stressful jobs in the world. It has been cited by numerous different studies as being right up there with firefighters, airline pilots, police officers, and even enlisted military personnel. We are high up on the list for really going through high amounts of stress in our work. And even though we are going through the stress, our work is definitely rewarding. However, it can come at a cost. It can come at a cost of our well-being and mental health. So wanted to go through some of the areas that are stressful, and then perhaps because you know of these areas that you might want to be mindful of that as you're going forward in your work on the daily. So the first one I have down here is the expectation gap. And what I mean by this is that there's a gap between what the client actually wants and then what, let's say, you are able to provide them with or what they can have. And because of that gap, there is pressure. And that pressure usually falls on the weight of the shoulders of the event professional. Why? Because the client is looking for the event professional to make it all better. And we love to serve. We want to serve. We want to make it better for our clients. We want to find a way to make it happen. And usually that comes at an immense amount of pressure on us. So that is my first one, is that there's this expectation gap that may be there because of what the client wants and then what they can actually receive. And there's ways to navigate this. Obviously, we want to do as much as we can do to make our clients happy. However, at times we do have to be open and honest about setting the expectations so that there's not that pressure that's on the planner. So that's the first one, is that there's an expectation gap, and that is the reason why, one of the reasons why event planning can be very stressful. The second one that I have is that there are increased global demands. So regardless if there's a seller's market or not, planners always need to know how to be able to leverage what the demands are in the workplace. Many times we might be in a seller's market, right? Where the hoteliers and venues, they really have the upper hand. So we need to still figure out how we can be able to leverage the best possible opportunities for our clients, right? Or it could be a different situation. It could be a buyer's market. Now, it's not necessarily just about the buyers and the seller's market. It also can be what's happening in the world. Like right now, we definitely have war actually happening, and that can have an impact on some of the things that we're able to get and receive for our events. It can have an impact on shipping for our events, things like that. So whatever's going on in the world, it does affect the event professional. It affects how we do our our work, and we come up against a lot of pain points within our work, just trying to get certain things done that we never really would thought that there was an issue. I remember for the pandemic, there was a lot of different dynamics of the event planning that had to be done in order for planners to put on a really great event. The challenges in ensuring that everyone coming up to the event was healthy and that the event is is a healthy environment for all. Those were really some challenges that were because of what was happening out in the world. Number 3, pricing struggles. There's always pricing struggles when it comes to event professionals, regardless if there's inflation or there's not inflation. There's always the challenge of doing more with less, figuring out how you can meet your budgets on your events and do it in a way that you can have still the best event ever. That can be a stressing point because our clients always want the sun and the moon, and we want to give it to them. And sometimes it's really difficult to make sure that everything is fitting within a budget. So making sure that we're managing that budget and managing it, managing their expectations at the same time can present some stress as well within your job. The next one I have is that your employer doesn't even see your stress as a concern. And the reason why I put this is because we are in a particular environment where we're so busy, we are overwhelmed, and that's a constant. And many times employers don't even see that it is a concern, or your employers don't see that it's something to be monitored to ensure that the stress level within their companies aren't going to the point of no return. We can be in environments that are stressful, and if everyone else is doing it, we feel like we need to do it too. And so being able to monitor it and make sure that we're taking charge of our own well-being can be a challenge for most event professionals. And employers don't easily see it as well unless it starts to impact their bottom line by way of planners not being able to work and not being able to service clients. Thus, clients are having a service challenge. So that's usually too late when there is that kind of a concern. So we want to make sure that we're addressing it earlier. So employers not seeing that the stress is concern, or, gaslighting it, or saying, oh, just take this one more event, can definitely be working against the whole situation. All right. And then finally, your hours are there's just too many hours. You're working too long and too hard. And so you want to make sure that there's a way that you can ensure that you're getting things done a little bit easier and less time is spent on your work. Many times there's processes that are too long, and maybe there's clunky processes that are very tedious to do, and that can be elongating how much time you're spending on your work. So finding ways to make that a little bit easier can also be helpful. So those were just a few areas in which event planning can be so stressful. I'm pretty sure you can add on to this list. And if you can, definitely shoot me an email and let me know. But in order to combat this, there's a few areas that you can do in order to combat this. The first thing is you can figure out how to handle your stress. And we talk about that a lot on this podcast. Understand how you can really address the stressors that are in your work and find a way to put boundaries around those things so that they don't impact you as much. Also, prioritizing as much as you can your work so that you're not caught off guard by random tasks that may come your way. Also, saying no, making sure that you say no if you are at a point where you're overwhelmed and you cannot take any more. Definitely raising your hand and saying you aren't able to take anything else. And there's different ways you can do that so that it really works for everyone. And then regardless of what you do and how you handle your stress, that you walk in confidence of that because you have taken the first step or the step to create boundaries, to say no and to prioritize your work, and be confident that you are doing that because you are saying yes to you and you do matter. And when you are better and when you feel well rested and when you feel like you can bring your best to work, then you're bringing nothing but best to your clients. So those are the few things that I had to kind of share with why event planning is so stressful, and just a few tips on how you can be able to manage that stress in your work. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, please stay on purpose.
Well, that wraps it up for this episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, hit the like button and tell us how much you enjoyed the show by leaving a message in the comments. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.